Hello, welcome to Cinema Savvy. We're back with another Battle of the Brackets, much sooner than last time. I know we had a big hiatus before the previous episode that we did. We're more regular on these things now, and I don't know why we haven't done this bracket much sooner than we have. I can't even remember which number episode we're up to now. This is for Best Animated Film, so it's a fairly sort of common category, and it's just one that we haven't done. That being said, and again, I feel like a broken record every time I do these intros, we're all kind of terrified for this one, mostly due to a certain person's picks, which we'll get into in just a second. I will say for me, definitely, this is one that I've prepared for the most. I never prepare for these things. I always just go into it just, completely cold. I had to for this one. This is a very intimidating one, but it's going to be a good one. It's one that we're all looking forward to talking about. So, fighters for today. It's this exactly. If you tuned into our previous one that we did, it's exactly the same. So, fighting today is myself, George, Tate, and Harry, and judging for us once again today is Dave in the bottom corner there. I think that's all the formalities done for the intro.
Yes, I guess we'll move on to socials very quickly before we go into the rules and everything. For the thing. So please comment below on the video what your favorite animated film is. We want to hear it in the comments as well. You guys chatting along. We always love to see kind of people just talking in the comments about all the things that are happening in the brackets, who should have won which round, whatever, who you think's going to win, who you think's going to get to the final, or maybe we've missed one completely. Maybe there's one which was on our reserves list that did not make it onto the bracket and you want to tell us about it. Please go do that in the comments. Also, do not forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Please subscribe because we are getting so close to our next goal. Please go and find us on Facebook as well, where we'll tell you about all of our videos coming up. Same again on Twitter. So on Facebook, just type in Cinema Savvy. On Twitter, it's at cinema_savvy. And if you feel like it, go on to TeePublic, pick up a t-shirt from us. Link is in the description below.
Absolutely. So once again, guys, I'm going to go over the rules. However, I have prepared as of 1 a.m. this morning. We now have a rules photo. So if you're watching at home, you're going to get a nice little thing while I talk over it. So the rules are that each fighter is given 1 minute to argue their choice. They will then get a 30-second rebuttal. So 1 minute, 1 minute, 30 seconds, and 30 seconds. So it's a back and forth. After the round is over, the three non-fighters, so the judge and two others that aren't fighting on that moment, will each vote on who had the strongest argument, and they will explain why, putting their vote to see who's going to progress to the next round. The losing pick is then eliminated from the competition. And when we get to the final, each fighter is given an extra 30 seconds to argue and defend their choice. So there is more time in the final, which makes it a lot harder than you can actually imagine. And following off the decimation from Harry last time, we're just going to quickly bring up the fact that if you have 4 choices in the semi-finals, you can let somebody else take over. You can put yourself forwards, but just for gamesmanship, we do let other people come in so we still have a show, even though we've already declared a winner. That being said, we have an updated scoreboard from, it's like the Desolation of Smart, but Harry, isn't it? So the current scoreboard for Battle of the Brackets, we have myself and Chris both drawn on 9 wins, followed by Tate and Al on 2, and then Ryan, Harry, and Tom each on 1. So all we know is today somebody's going to be moving forwards. And then we're going to introduce everyone and their picks very quickly. If we each introduce our own, that might be quicker. So Chris, let's go with yours first.
Okay, so my first choice is Beauty and the Beast, obviously the 1991 animated Disney film. My second choice, DreamWorks' Prince of Egypt. Third choice is Charlie Kaufman's Anomalisa. And my fourth choice is Shrek 2.
And Harry?
My first choice is Koe no Katachi, or A Silent Voice. My second choice is Studio Ghibli's Princess Mononoke. My third choice is How to Train Your Dragon. And my fourth choice is Your Name.
Tate?
My first choice today is Ratatouille. My second choice is The Hunchback of Notre Dame. My third choice is The Iron Giant. And my fourth choice is Kubo and the Two Strings.
And then rounding up, my first choice is Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Second choice is Toy Story 1. Third choice is South Park, Bigger, Longer, and Uncut. And fourth choice is The Lion King. So we have a full bracket for you all. We're carrying on the intro, so I hope you're ready because it's going to get feisty in a couple of minutes. The bracket is as follows. So first up, we have Beauty and the Beast versus Kubo, followed by Princess Mononoke and South Park, followed by Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse versus The Iron Giant, which is going to be absolutely heartbreaking. Followed by the Prince of Egypt versus. Oh my god, I've got the two anime mixed up. I'm so sorry, Harry. Is that your life?
That's your name.
Your name, sorry. And then we've got Harry's other Japanese one, which I'm just going to pretend that I can't pronounce properly, against The Lion King. Then you've got Hunchback and Notre Dame against Shrek 2, Ratatouille versus How to Train Your Dragon, and finally Toy Story versus Anomalisa. Quite a difference with those two. That's going to be a very tasty one, I think.
Princess Monocoque, you heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry, George, I had to.
Wow.
That's how I've said it. That's how I'm saying it in my head.
That's cool. So yeah, I think we're getting on to round one, and I'm fighting first. I always hate doing that, but nevertheless, here we are. The show must go on. So first round is going to be me with Beauty and the Beast fighting Tate, I believe, with Kubo and the Two Strings.
Yes.
Okay, gents, I have a timer ready for you both. So when you're ready to go, I'll have a timer. Just start talking, and I will start the clock from then.
Okay, right. The Little Mermaid opened the door up for the Disney Renaissance, but to me, it was Beauty and the Beast which cemented that and just nailed every single aspect of what makes not just a good Disney film and what is required from a Disney film, but also just animated film in general. In many ways, I think Beauty and the Beast for Disney's legacy is as important as Snow White was when Disney first started. It really did bring that whole new, it raised the game for animation at that time, and other studios had to compete with Beauty and the Beast. And the big thing about it as well is that it's so genius in how it was made, in that it turns the archetypal stereotype of the fairy tale completely on its head. Usually with animated films, you have the sort of star-crossed lovers, and you easily know who the couple in the relationship's going to be. But Beauty and the Beast is the first one where they're not immediately attracted to each other. They have to work for that relationship, and it builds and it grows across the film. And also the villain as well. You have this sort of handsome, chisel-jawed, burly guy.
Chris, that's your time.
Oh, wow. Jeez. Okay.
Kubo and the Two Strings is a labor of love from Laika. It is absolutely fantastically animated. The painstaking work that goes into stop motion. We've seen it with Wallace and Gromit and Aardman Studios doing it in the past, but Laika is the new trendsetters, the game setters for this area of animation. And this film is beautiful. This film is perfectly set in ancient Japan. It shows brilliant character development throughout the entire film from all of the characters involved. How can you have a kids' film that tackles both the American ways and the Asian ways of dealing with death? How are you able to make that available for kids and also adults at the same time? You make a badass samurai movie with a perfect hero's journey figured out across the way. It is such a fantastic film. Beauty and the Beast is a great looking film, but it does fall into that trap of Stockholm Syndrome, doesn't it? There are certain elements of the film as well which do appear a little bit off, like why are the wolves suddenly there and then never mentioned throughout the entire rest of the film? There are little things that you can nitpick about that film.
Kubo's animation is unquestionable. It's great, but what lets it down are its story and its characters. As soon as Matthew McConaughey's character is introduced, he's this really sort of out-of-place comic relief character, and he really doesn't serve any function to the story. He just comes across as like a buffoon, a stupid character. And also, spoiler alert, I guess, for Kubo, the villain at the end is defeated by the power of love, which is like one of the most tried and tested tropes in animation in general. There's also some interesting symbolism in Kubo, but then it's spelt out as matter of fact. There's no sort of subtlety there or intrigue because it's just spelled out for the audience.
I'm sorry, but the villain at the end of your film is a giant beast versus a human. That's not exactly a very fair fight, is it? With Kubo, it isn't just through the power of love that he defeats the Moon King in the end. It's through so much more than that. He has a massive fight with him, and it's the ability to take things from his past and his present, the three strings that make up the instrument that he plays. It is his mum, it is his dad, it is his past, it is his future. Everything goes forward into that battle, and that's what makes it stand out from all of the other films.
It's grease in the groove, grease in the groove.
That went well. Round one, always the hardest round to get out of the way, get the awkward silence. I am still processing. If anyone has formed an opinion at the moment, I've got a couple of thoughts, but I'm not going to share them until I've decided.
I can talk mine out because I'm not entirely decided. I think Chris's opening argument was a little bit weak because he focused a bit too much on legacy and context, which obviously is important, and I respect that. But I think you didn't like. Obviously, Kubo wasn't mentioned at all during your opening monologue, but you came back really, really aggressively in that rebuttal, which I thought was fantastic. I thought that like really decimated a lot of the issues with Kubo. But I think Tate just had a really solid defense to all the points you brought up and was able to sort of battle you out with that one. So I think I'm going to give it to Tate.
I would probably go along the same line in that I'll straight out now. I am going to go the way of Tate on this one as well. I thought your argument when you went into the cross-culturalism of the American and the Japanese storytelling, I thought was a really valid point. And I liked how you kind of took down Beauty and the Beast because, oh my God, it's a wonderful film. But I just thought overall the argument was stronger for Kubo.
Okay.
I would have gone the same. I think you had him on the rebuttal, but the opening minute Tate kind of won it there. You did well to come back, but it wasn't
really
enough
strong.
to give it.
I wasn't expecting to get this far.
Okay. Who goes through?
Well, fuck, I don't know.
So we have our first upset. Beauty and the Beast is out, which surprised many people. However, next up we have Princess versus South Park. Let's just end it there, shall we? Harry, you are up first. If someone has a timer,
all ready to go. When you start talking, I shall start timing.
Arguing Princess Mononoke against South Park is honestly a Herculean task because these are two films that could not be more different. One is a very, very satirical comedy. The other is an adventure story, a coming-of-age story. And the two of them have basically nothing in common, bar one salient feature, which is, of course, the animation. That's the reason we're doing this. It's best animated film. And I think anyone that tries to argue that South Park has better animation than Princess Mononoke is mental, frankly. Princess Mononoke is a gorgeous film. It came at the end of the 2D era and the beginning of the 3D CG era, and it blends the two styles perfectly. You have these gorgeous hand-drawn backgrounds with these terrifying, strange creatures superimposed on it. They give it this strange, ethereal quality, while also seeming normal and comfortable and at home. Whereas South Park is just blocky and colours and very little animation. And I respect that's part of its charm, but when comparing the two, I think in terms of animation, Princess Mononoke just blows it out of the water.
That's time.
I completely understand that because when you do look at South Park, you do think, this is it's a TV series that had a film, and at the time it was big, but it wasn't the levels it became. This film elevates South Park to be what it is today. It's a satire, it's downright. I wouldn't complain about the animation. The animation is great throughout. It's consistent with the series, but it makes enough of itself to be an event film. It makes you want to watch this. Why do you need to watch a South Park film? What can a film give you that it can't give you in real life? And the big thing is context. You look back at the Saddam Hussein stuff, the fact he's in hell, he is pure evil. You have all of this, but here we are 20 plus years later, and we're sitting in the exact same real life scenario. We've got racist Americans blaming other countries for everything. We've got a psycho in charge of the country. It isn't just satire that's of the time. It's so perfectly dated that it happens every couple of years. You look back at South Park, I think this is perfect. You can look at that and you can see a reflection of reality to a point. Obviously, we haven't had the demons of hell come and get us yet. But I think the big thing with these animations is that it's not just the animation quality. It's about the story, and you're invested. You've got these 4 kids that end up saving the world. And,
You're right, it is about the story and about the theming as well. You talk about how it's an eternal film, South Park, but I think it's very dated by the entire point you said. It's about people like Saddam Hussein who aren't exactly relevant anymore. Whereas the themes in Princess Mononoke are timeless. The themes of environmentalism, conservationism, feminism, all these strong themes that bleed perfectly into the story to give it this fantastic, just interwoven connectiveness that I just think South Park doesn't have. You're talking about heart and how you engage with the story. The story of the main character in Princess Mononoke is compelling. It's a traditional boyhood story of a man who of a boy.
That's time.
the problem is that your film, it's something we've all seen before. How many films are there about the environment being this important, how the only real villain of the planet is humans themselves? It's been done to death. Other films have done it better. We're in a time where we're sick and fed up of it. Let's just set our heads back. Let's have a laugh at something else, because South Park also proves the points that all humans are assholes, but it just done it in a far more engaging, exciting way. And it's a musical as well. Give it credit. It delved into the musical. It became a timeless classic for the songs, including the Oscar-nominated Blame Canada.
Time.
And with time to spare, Jesus.
Sorry, I thought I was going to get cut off any second. I didn't know what to
Oh my God. This is going to be one of those brackets, isn't it? I can already tell. We're 2 fights in. I can already tell. Oh my God.
I'll go.
Yeah.
I thought it was I'll jump in. Let's just someone speak. So actually both again. Of some of these picks, this is one of the only sort of anime films that I've seen, which is a really nice point when you're looking at some of these. But it kind of comes to a point where, Harry, your first argument was just kind of about the animation style over anything else, whereas George came in about the substance. I thought the satire moving not just for the time, but for also being relevant to the time we're in now as well, 2020 being the hellish scene that we are seeing in front of us. And it was that opening argument that really sold it to me with that. And I think bringing up the musical side of it in the second half as well was a really nice point, that it is this big musical, for it's not just an episode of South Park. For me, that is the argument that took it for me, and I'm giving that to South Park.
I'm gonna jump in next. I'm actually going the other direction. I'm giving this to Princess Mononoke, a film which I know it's a sin to say that I've never seen it, but I'm slowly getting my way through all the Studio Ghibli films. Your opening argument talking about the actual animation and kind of saying, oh yeah, if you're comparing the two animation styles, of course one has a lot more, well, not effort, but it looks beautiful compared to the one which is almost intentionally blocky. When you came in with the rebuttal, like it sold it for me. Like, you say Saddam Hussein isn't relevant anymore and stuff like that, completely taking out George's argument. It was really well done, so I'm giving it to Princess Mononoke.
Oh, I hate these
Please,
moments.
Chris, with the decider.
With these two films as well, with these two. Actually, I was pretty much, during the arguments, whilst I agree with you, Tate, that, Harry went into sort of like the animation style, I am tending more towards Dave's line of thinking as well. I thought it was really good how you managed to squeeze in that musical side as well, because that is a huge important thing with South Park the movie. And I thought that the rebuttal and the attack on Princess Mononoke was very strong, whereas I didn't feel quite the attack from Mononoke towards South Park. And I thought it was some good attacks from Harry, but I think that George, you managed to dodge around and duck and weave your way to getting South Park through to the next round. That pains me to say, because Mononoke is one of the most Beauty and the Beast and Mononoke, like that left-hand side, like, my God, this is going to be a shocking bracket.
Had it been Mononoke you were actually talking about.
Hey, now there we go.
No.
Quick Google search later. Okay.
Okay, I didn't expect that.
Who knows what you're going to find if you search that in?
That was weird. I need a couple of seconds to catch my breath. So 2 upsets after 2 matches. Next up,
Hoping for a third upset, not gonna lie.
Spider-Verse versus the Iron Giant.
Oh boy, I really do hope this is an upset.
Oh God, I don't know. All right.
That left side. I'm just looking at that left side of the bracket right now on my phone. Like, if is this going to be one of those brackets? Like, wow. Okay. Wow. Okay. So Into the Spider-Verse versus Iron Giant. This was the one that I'm most looking forward to. That and the South Park one. So don't disappoint. Who's up first?
I am. Sorry, the Spider-Man is. Right. Someone tell me when.
Yeah. Whenever you start talking, sir.
Spider-Man changed everything, this animated film. It's been, 2 years now, and we haven't even seen the backlog of it. But what this thing did that not many films on this list at all have done, of all 16 tonight, talking best animated film, this gave us a new animation style we have not seen yet. The animated comic book, such a simple, basic concept, where it looks like pop art, but it looks like a comic, but it's real. It's so perfectly animated that you're just taken aback before you even get into the story. It's something new. It's something jaw-dropping. The modern technology, even a 3D conversion, was beautiful for this film. And then we get the Iron Giant, which is an outright classic. However, Spider-Man elevates everything to the next level, where there's nothing standing. There's a reason this had that campaign to win the best animated film. It could have, for me, been up for best film. It's not just a great comic book film, animated film. This is arguably in the top 3 Spider-Man film, which is an even bigger sentiment. It is a perfect film, and I think you're so invested in the story because it's telling something the mass public haven't seen. Miles Morales is not.
You are absolutely right. The Iron Giant is a classic. And I'm going to talk about what is one of my favorite films of all time and what I genuinely believe to be one of the best animated films of all time. This was Brad Bird's first feature-length film. This was his first attempt at a full-length film. He'd done stuff with The Simpsons before then, but this is his first time where he properly went in on it. And he brought adult themes to a kid's film. I talked about that in my Kubo argument, but that's not really what I'm focusing on here. The story that is told here of a robot that is designed to be evil and to be cruel, ending up being friendly, and that whole kind of process of coming along with this character, coming along with Hogarth, and loving this creature, loving this robot, it takes my breath away every single time I watch it. I always go back to it and I think, will it be the same when I come back to it? And you get that nostalgia with it. And I don't think that film you can get with Into the Spider-Verse yet because it's so fresh, it's so new. But with the Iron Giant, it is a classic. It is cemented and it stood the test of time. Like, everyone thinks the ending where the Iron Giant's going up and says Superman, phenomenal.
You keep talking about the Iron Giant, but you don't mention Hogarth. One of the most boring characters of all of these films. The biggest disappointment of that film is Hogarth. He's a boring individual. We don't like him. There's a reason he hasn't got friends. We care more about his stuff with his mom. We care more about seeing the Iron Giant. We care about everything except bloody Hogarth. Whereas in my one, Peter Parker takes a backseat for Miles Morales, a new character, a fantastic protagonist you align with. You share the tears when his uncle's killed in front of him. You share the tears when he has to watch his dad see his uncle dead. It's devastating. It has all the emotion.
You don't really share the tears because the uncle always dies in Spider-Man films. That's just a given. Whereas with Superman at the end of Iron Giant, it's such an iconic moment that has stood so long after. You say Hogarth is a boring character. He's the character you follow from the start. You love him. You kind of follow his story and learning his loving relationship with this robot. And you relate to that. He is a relatable person at that point in time when you're a kid. And you connect with that character. You can't connect with Miles Morales because you don't have superpowers. It's as simple as that.
I need to interject. Miles Morales' dad normally dies in the comics.
Okay,
that wasn't what I argued, was it, though, George?
No, but it defeats your purpose of what you just said, that his uncle always dies.
Time.
I'm bringing a fact check. I'm bringing a fact check into that because that point is deleted.
I said films.
Okay.
Doesn't work for Miles Morales.
There are tension in the ranks. Okay, right. I'm going to go first on this one because I don't want to be down to any kind of tiebreaker where I take out Mononoke. Right. I thought some of the arguments were strange. Some of the, I love Hogarth. I hate Hogarth. Well, that's just subjective. It's all subjective. There's not really any clear-cut sort of criticism there. And the whole thing with the Iron Giant being a classic in that it's been out for longer than Spider-Verse has, I'm like, well, that's just down to time. Who knows, in like 10 plus years Spider-Verse could be exactly the same. I think that George had the stronger all-round argument as to why Spider-Verse was a better animated film. He spoke about not just the fact that it won an Oscar, but the fact that it elevated its art form with its animation. And also the bold choice of a new protagonist as well that we hadn't seen on screen before, yet everyone connected to it. I just got more elements about the film discussed in the argument from George than I feel like I did with the Iron Giant. I got that it was Brad Bird's first feature, but I didn't really get anything beyond that other than it's a classic, sort of like vague, nebulous terms like that. So I am going to give it to George on this one for Spider-Verse.
I can go next if you like. I'm also going to give it to George for Spider-Verse. I think ultimately what it came down to for me is that both arguments I thought were really solid. I thought they were both a bit vague in certain aspects. But Tate, I just don't think you attacked Spider-Verse at all.
You can't attack Spider-Verse.
I know, I'm aware it's part of the problem. But yeah, so like you were constantly then playing defensive and you were always playing catch-up, and I felt that you just never really recovered from that blow. So yeah, I'm going to give it to George.
And it is going to be a three-way, kind of. Monococky. It's another one for me for Spider-Verse. It was the overall argument. I just thought, the attack was stronger from George. The elevation, like Chris mentioned, of it not just being one of the best animated films, but one of the best Spider-Man films as well. I thought it was a really good argument. It's awful when you see two people arguing against two movies that they absolutely love, and it's a really tough one to call. But yeah, just for the overall elevation of the film that it did, I gave that to George as well for Spider-Verse.
I'm allowing people
That
to
was
go
hard.
with the low blow of the uncle always dies in the film's argument for later on.
It's a struggle. Like, there's plenty of films on this, like later down the bracket. One in specific that I'm looking at right now, where when you love that film, and you can't think of anything negative about it, it's going to be so difficult. Like when you said that, oh, you don't connect to it because superheroes don't exist. I was like, you're clutching, man. You're clutching. I love you. I get it. I completely get it. I completely get it. But yeah, it's tough when you're in that situation.
Yeah, enjoy that next fight. Whoever's got that.
Yeah. Oh well, we don't know. So I'm in this next one with Prince of Egypt against Harry. With oh my god, the two look so similar. Is it your name?
Hold on, proud of you.
Okay. Oh my god. Okay. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that I haven't seen Your Name, so this is going to be a very, very fun argument.
I was going to say,
so again, when you're ready.
Okay, so 1998, Prince of Egypt comes out, and animation, especially with Disney at the time, it had established itself as, you know, the fairy tale story. Jeffrey Katzenberger, who was the executive producer of DreamWorks, said that he didn't want to tell another fairy tale story. This is 98. You know, we've had the dime a dozen at this point. He wanted to do something dramatic, something epic, and that film was The Prince of Egypt, telling a story that has been told many times, the biblical story of Moses. But this film, especially for animation, for an animation company to go, we're going to tackle the Bible and do a Bible story, that's impressive in its own right, that they had that idea, they had that passion there to tell this story. But what elevates this in terms of other portrayals of this story is the depth it goes into with its characters. It just doesn't just cover like the cookie cutter sort of cliff notes of the Bible story. It goes in depth into the characters. You have the character of Moses and Ramesses, who are brothers and become estranged over the course of the movie due to Moses wanting to help free the slaves and Ramesses not wanting to be the weak link in his dynasty.
Time.
Oh my God.
In 1998, The Prince of Egypt was a groundbreaking film. I think it was very technically proficient. I think it was, I think the music particularly was very good. However, it's not 1998. Times have moved on, and as a result, it has just been left behind. There are so many elements in Your Name that are simply just better than everything put into the Prince of Egypt. I mean, just from a visual standpoint, the art is gorgeous in Your Name. Makoto Shinkai has an amazing ability to make the most mundane and boring tasks look utterly amazing. There is one scene in the film where the female lead is preparing a lunch and she's cutting a cucumber, and it's mesmerizing. I don't know how you can do that. It's impossible. Additionally, the other thing Makoto Shinkai does well is heart, and I think that's something that is absolutely lacking in The Prince of Egypt. There is no connection to those characters. There is nothing. It's technically proficient, but it has no soul. It has no emotion. It's just there. Oh, one more time. Okay.
Time.
I would flip that on its head. I think that the main character of Taki has no personality at all. He's just a blank character. The film focuses as well on montage. So many montages in the film. You talked about the exhilarating cucumber cutting scene, which sounds fantastic. Like, get that in a film. But we don't get the emotional takeaway from the characters of that scene. It's just on screen, but we don't get that. That music video montage thing is great, but you don't get any kind of character takeaway from it. Prince of Egypt is all about the character, the brotherly dynamic between Moses and all the supporting characters as well that get paid off.
I couldn't strongly disagree more with your comment. The idea that you see these people in their day-to-day life shows exactly their personality, because the film isn't this gigantic epic. It's a personal story between two individuals. That's the entire point. So you see them interacting in these tiny little individual moments, and it grows, and the relationship between them grows along with it, culminating in one of the most emotional climaxes I think I've ever seen in a film. If you watch that film and you don't have some sort of emotion in it, you just go lie down somewhere because you're dead. Prince of Egypt? No, I'm sorry. The brotherly dynamic is just not expanded on at all. It's just there.
Time.
Again, so much Prince of Egypt.
Ooh.
Can I have another rebuttal?
I'll go first because I don't want to be one of the people in the tie race, because I feel that this may go to one. But Harry, you absolutely had that from the start, and then that last comment there kind of made me check back and think, the brotherly dynamic is the entire film. You can't say that it isn't like talked about. It's a tough one. Even though that last comment kind of made me check back my thoughts, I do think you had the stronger argument throughout the entire thing. I've seen both of these films. I'm not sure if anyone else has seen Your Name, but you did nail a lot of the points. And even though Chris attacked you on them, you were able to defend them in some way, shape, or form. So I'll give it to Your Name.
Okay. I haven't seen Your Name at all, so this was solely down on arguments. The Prince of Egypt is a film I adore, so it's really just hard to say. There were some points when Harry was talking about there was no connection to the characters. Now, it depends on what side of religion I think you fall on, and it's a really bizarre thing that Catholic person who is a churchgoer, and I think it speaks to me, people like that, and people like myself a lot more. So to say there was no connection to the characters, I think that is, but that's just for myself a moot point. But I thought overall, your argument itself was a stronger one for the characterization of such a personal story between two characters rather than the set piece of the brothers. But so yeah, for me, on just overall argument of attack on Prince of Egypt, I am going to give this one to Harry. Sorry.
I'm an atheist, I still love the movie. So I'm just going to say, if we're going to bring religion into it, why not?
I would have also given this to Harry. I thought there was just a little bit more to the argument, and I know there's just that a little bit more to keep it going. But that is where I'm doing that. Sorry, guys, I'm just editing.
It's always the hardest. The hardest fights are always ones against films that you haven't seen.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Yeah.
Like, always the case.
Yeah, I do appreciate you going for the attack on the protagonist about a film that you haven't seen.
I know.
Yeah, it was nice move.
It was a bold
so
strike.
boring. What did you say? Cucumber? Oh, no, none of that. No.
We might actually. I don't know if people have seen this one. I know I haven't, but I'm not arguing in this one, so it's going to be. Harry, help me out here. Which one haven't we done?
Silent Voice.
A Silent Voice.
Silent Voice. There we go. Versus.
Has anyone here seen this one? Because if not, this could be interesting.
Who knows?
I mean,
maybe I'll watch that.
Harry, you're fighting George. I think you may have seen it.
I think George is a dark horse on this one.
George does his research. I would worry.
He does. All right. Okay.
Harry, you're up first.
Okay. So when it comes to animation, when most people think of good animation, they think of action. They think of dramatic scenes. In Disney films, that's the musical numbers. In anime, that's the big fight scenes. What the Silent Voice does, that others doesn't do, is focuses on the minutiae, the little details. When it comes to animation, nothing is taken for granted. When you do facial animations, clothing animations, just tiny little bits of movement, that has to be animated. That has a cost. And in a Silent Voice, that is there amazingly. Because one of the main characters, spoilers, is deaf. So as a result, they can't have this feedback of voice actors. They can't have this exposition dumps. Instead, it relies entirely on the animation, and it is breathtakingly beautiful. It conveys so much emotion so easily, whereas The Lion King, yeah, it's a classic, don't get me wrong, but it has been objectively obliterated by the passage of time. It has some fantastic bits of music and visuals, but the actual animation itself, which is what we're talking about, is best animated film, it's lackluster. It is just panning or zooming on still images. There is so little, bar the musical numbers. There are this
Time.
How very day. The Lion King is one of the greatest films. You mentioned the animation. I don't know if you're still watching the VHS version, but every time Disney's upgraded it to the latest remaster, to the 4K version, it looks bloody beautiful. There's a reason that last year the full live-action reboot came in, and we all flocked back to the animated film because it was done so much better. The fact they could animate the actual animals and lions to have emotion. You cry when Mufasa dies. You cry when Scar dies because he's such a fucking excellent villain. It is one of the greatest films ever made. And yes, you're going to bring up Shakespeare, but you know what's better than Shakespeare? Shakespeare done better. Modernize it, put the animal kingdom into it. We have Hans Zimmer's only Oscar win in history. Absolute bollocks, he's only won one. But one of the most memorable scores in the history of cinema is this. Your film is the one when the X's just fade off their faces every time you get to learn the character. There are video game cutscenes that do that better. And that's just cheap animation. Mine conveys everything from the heart to the laughter to the tears. One of the best cast animated films.
I like that you brought up the X's because that's literally the entire point. So it's nice to know that you've missed the entire theme of the movie in that you don't see the people's face until he interacts with them, because then when you do see them, the animation is so perfect because you get to see every little part of them. Every line about this character is written on their face. It is fantastic. It is amazing. Yeah, okay, The Lion King, yeah, visually it's very nice. That's why it was better than the more recent remake, because the colors were just completely washed out. But the actual animation isn't there. It was Disney's B team on the animation, and it shows. Pocahontas has better animation than The Lion King.
It's boring because it's predictable. Once you've done a couple of X's, you know that it's just going to carry on and then you lose things. Whereas The Lion King, you don't know what's going to happen next. Who was going to know he'd meet the stoner animals in the jungle and mature with them? Who knew he'd come back to Pride Rock and overtake Scar? There are so many things this journey could take, and it's a timeless classic. Kids as young as 2-3 can love and cry with it. Adults can love it. It's generational. It's not a Disney B team. It is the A team. There's a reason they even had to wait, because this is their proudest accomplishment of the entire Disney animated catalog. The Lion King is the one that everybody.
Time.
Can I just say it's objectively not true? It's their A team. It was their B team working on it. I just want to know that was a fact. Not
Yeah,
like
weren't they working on Pocahontas at the time?
Yeah, they were working on Pocahontas.
That's why you said the Pocahontas jab, which I actually quite liked. I'm not going to lie. That was a good jab.
I think they backed the wrong horse, but I do like Pocahontas as well.
I will say, I know this is a tangent.
That one.
I'll say the tangent here is that the animation in Pocahontas is absolutely breathtaking.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It's unbelievable.
Right, let's bring it back to the argument. Right, where are we going with this? Jesus. Just out of pure passion, and I think that I need to up my game over this, because, like, George, the amount of stuff you can cover in your opening minute, my friend, Jesus Christ. I am going to give it to Lion King. I did think that Harry did have a very strong argument against it, though. I guess it was just sort of the takeaway, what you took away from the film. Harry brought up the reason the X's are there, and clearly that didn't work for George with the film. But just in terms of stuff covered, and, you know, he talked about the music as well, like Hans Zimmer's score. He went into more avenues, I thought, with his film. I'm going to give it to Lion King on this one.
I have looked at this and wow, I mean, two arguments for two films that people are very passionate about, which is, again, amazing. And I just thought, like Chris just said, unfortunately, it was the strength of George's full-on argument where he was almost ready for a fight with that one coming out, and you could really feel that I've got these points and I'm gonna get through them. I thought it was really well put. I thought Harry had some excellent arguments. The B team argument was absolutely superb and a great dig towards the animation. I loved that comment. But just for overall, I love George mentioned the generational thing as well, and it really is. And they made a live action movie, and we all flocked back to this original animated movie, which says everything about it. And I just, for me, George took that argument as well.
I would have also given it to Lion King. As far as the argument's concerned, I mean, I've never seen a silent voice. And after those arguments, I still don't really know what it's about. All I know is that there is a deaf person and there are X's on people's faces. And I wish that Harry went more into the kind of what the film was about, what the major themes of the films. You've said, like, the animation is all like, oh, it's the little things in life and it's all about the smaller things and the finer details. But that doesn't actually tell me what the film is about. So it was very difficult for me to, having heard those arguments, go with the film where I know about the same amount as what I did going into it about a film, especially when George, like, went so hard basically on his own film, like, hyping it up. It's very difficult to go against that. So I would have given it to George.
I was so angry that Hans Zimmer still only won one Oscar. That's that.
I felt that.
Yeah, that came through.
Okay, we have actually had a comment from Carl before we move on quickly. He said it's a feisty one tonight. Great arguments for everyone so far. It is, and that's what we want on this show. That's what we love.
And to carry on the feist and people hating on things they love, next up we have Tates and the Hunchback of Notre Dame versus Chris and Shrek 2.
Tate, do you want to tell everyone how you stole my pick of Hunchback of Notre Dame for this one?
Literally, I had it on my list. I got my pick in just before Chris's, but Chris basically had Hunchback as the next pick that he was going to take, and I took it before him. So, yeah, this is... we all know that Chris loves this film, so...
Well, you're up first, my friend. You're up first.
Okay.
Tate, time will start when you do, sir.
The Hunchback of Notre Dame is an underrated Disney classic. It is one of my actually, do you know what? Fuck it. It is my favorite Disney film. It is my favorite Disney original. It just encapsulates Paris and what it is to live in Paris and be a part of the streets and be a part of the life that is Paris. It goes into so many different deep and dark elements that comes along with that. The history of Paris. It goes with Notre Dame itself and the religion that comes with it. And it tells a story of an outcast. God help the outcast, indeed, because his road through this film is tough. Going up against the evilest Disney villain by a long shot, with loads and loads of different adult themes. I've talked about it so much tonight. Bringing adult themes into kids' films is fantastic on any level. Hellfire, when you watch the sequence that is Hellfire, you are on the edge of your seat. It is so well done. It is so well sung by all the characters. It is so well voice acted.
Well, if Hunchback is a glimpse into Parisian life, that is not a place I want to be. Have you seen how quickly the citizens turn against Quasimodo in that film, The Court of Miracles? It is a horrible place, so I don't think that's an effective argument there. And also, one thing that Hunchback does not have is consistency. Yes, it has these adult themes, but it's also coupled with the comedy gargoyles, which completely dismantle any sense of maturity that the film is trying to go for. You want to know one film that does have consistency? That's Shrek 2. Not only is it a good film in its own right, but it is a perfect sequel. Off the back of already a very, very strong animated film, Shrek 2 amplifies everything. It continues the characters in a believable, logical way. There's some great morals to it as well. Shrek feels inferior, insecure. He got the girl in the first movie, but now he's got to blend in with society and go back to her parents and, you know, that sort of that timeless thing that all of us have to go through at some point. And there's all these real human emotions that's brought to it. Not only that, but the world itself, we get to see far, far away. We get to see all of these new places and new characters, fan favorite characters.
Yeah, well, Shrek being a continuation, the animation hasn't improved in any way, shape, or form, which is the one thing that you definitely want from a sequel. You want it to look better. It looks exactly the same. And that is one of the problems with Shrek. It does a lot more with the world building, everything like that, but it doesn't actually build, you know, the actual animated world any better than the original does. Hunchback doesn't do the same for its previous Disney films as well, but what it does bring is one of the best stories to it. You say the gargoyles are cheap characters. Every film has a cheap character. Donkey is one of those comedic characters that comes in.
If Disney had any bite, they would have brought all the maturity of the original novel. They skirt completely around that because it is a Disney film, and that's why the comedy gargoyles are in there. I know I keep going back to those, but they really do ruin they suck the life out of everything that film had going for. You talk about that the animation hasn't improved. The animation is vastly superior to the first Shrek film. They can do way more. There's way more things on screen. The giant gingerbread man sequence is one of the greatest sequences put to animation. The editing, the pacing, the music, the best cover of Holding Out for a Hero. Everything is in that.
Time. Oh my God. I'll go first. Tate, well done. Overall, I'm really sorry. It wasn't a tough battle. It really wasn't. But I thought the selling of Paris and the history and religion of selling a whole place and just everything you went through, and Chris had the comedy gargoyles, which seemed to be his main focus of it, and how much he didn't like Paris. But other than that, it was fine. But I couldn't go any further than see past Tate's argument for this movie. For me, Tate.
I might have a controversial opinion then because I'm giving it to Chris. I thought it was fairly well balanced, but I thought the attacks on Shrek weren't very strong at all. Whereas I thought the attack on the comedy gargoyles wasn't really well defended. Of the argument of they're in every film, so it's okay, isn't a particularly strong argument in my opinion. Even with that though, it was very back and forth up until Chris brought out the giant gingerbread man argument, which was spot on. So I'm giving it to Chris on that one.
He has a name, Chris.
Mungo. I know his name.
Plot twist. I actually saw Hunchback of Notre Dame after the last Battle of the Brackets it appeared on. You guys remember Best Disney Song? Bit of a plug there. Absolute abolishment that when it beat the Lion King. Anyway, it's not going to beat the Lion King next time because it is going out. Take you the stronger opening minute. However, Chris put everything right. The gargoyles not because you made such a great point about Paris about this, and then he brought the gargoyles in, and that's one thing he lengthed on it too long. But kind of shot yourself in the foot. It was like it's a Disney thing. And then you mentioned about Shrek, and Chris reminded me about how great Shrek 2 is, the gingerbread thing. We didn't get enough evidence of the stuff in Paris. We got a little bit, but I think Chris won it with the rebuttals and the attacks. There wasn't enough of an attack on Shrek 2. So that's why Shrek goes through.
Yeah, the second he mentioned Mongo, I was like, fuck.
Yeah, I kind of saw that. I was like, oh, okay.
Hunchback's my favorite Disney film as well. So that's, yeah.
But it's easier to take down things you love, let's be honest, because you know the weaknesses, you just won't admit them. Anyway, so that little polite poignant point's going to go away because Tate, are you ready to fight again? We have you fighting again with your number one pick, Ratatouille.
It's combining my previous picks, I want to point out.
Ratatouille versus Harry and How to Train Your Dragon 1, the first of the trilogy. I'm really looking forward to this because I've got a lot of expectation. So Tate, you're up first, and then on the top for whenever you're ready.
I'm combining the Paris and the Pete Bird. I'm doing everything in this bracket, the Brad Bird, sorry. So with Ratatouille, this is a passion project. This is a film about a love for anything that you have in your life, anything that you have a passion about, like film, cinema, whether it's cooking, whether it's sports, anything. If you put your mind to it, you can go and do these things and you can put yourself forwards. And Ratatouille tells a story of the underdog rising up and managing to beat, well, an ego, a genuine ego that is Anton Ego, the film critic, played amazingly by Peter O'Toole in one of his only voice acting performances. The film is beautiful. It is beautifully shot. The areas of the kitchen are so well filmed. You feel like you're actually there in the kitchen. Not many animated films can put you in a real life setting, but this film can. It is so well done. The voice acting, once again, is fantastic. Patton Oswalt was made to make animated voices. And this is another...
You talk about how it was beautiful being in Paris, and I don't disagree, but I think if you're talking about just the sheer spectacle, then How to Train Your Dragon would knock that one out of the park. Just the one sequence of learning how to fly with the music swelling, the sunset, the water, everything. It's breathtaking. It is stunning. Alongside that, there are so many beautiful, just little themes. There's themes about loneliness, themes about acceptance and fitting in, themes about pretending to be someone you're not. Themes which are also well reflected in Ratatouille, I admit, but I don't think necessarily touched on it at all in the same way that How to Train Your Dragon touches on them, because they are the focus here. They are the bread and butter of the film. This his Hiccup's journey is so relatable to so many people, because it's the idea of being in a situation where you know you're talented, you know you've got something to prove, but nobody's willing to show that. Nobody's willing to accept you for your strengths. And I don't think that Ratatouille gives on the same themes, which admittedly does touch on, in the same way that How to Train Your Dragon does.
Time.
It has the same themes, but How to Train Your Dragon has a dislikable protagonist who only gets more likable as the films go on. And in fact, to that point, the films get better as they go along. It's very difficult to argue for the best animated film where the spectacle becomes bigger and bigger on the later films, where the characters develop more. Ratatouille does it in one shot. It has one shot to show this story off, and it does it expertly. It does it perfectly. It does it in every single way possible. The animation looks cleaner. It looks nicer. The setting puts you in the film. You can't say that about How to Train Your Dragon.
Just because it has sequels doesn't necessarily mean the original one is any weaker. I don't think that's a very valid argument whatsoever, because I think the story told in How to Train Your Dragon is a perfectly self-complete story. However, it then touches on new themes in the sequels, which obviously I'm not going to go into. Ratatouille, yeah, it is also told in one story, but that's just because that's how Disney does things. That's just not an argument, in my opinion. How to Train Your Dragon has... Hiccup's just... I strongly disagree with the idea, first of all, that Hiccup is a dislikable character, because he's not. He's meant to be this awkward dweeb that then grows into something fantastic, and he does that over the course of one film. Yeah, it's done more in the sequels, but it's still touched on in that one film. That by the end, master.
Oh my god.
That was fiery.
I think Harry had that for me on the rebuttal. I think Tate, you had that. You had that completely. I thought, like, with everything you touched on the film, but I think that, you know, with it's always the aid of the person who gets the last word in, but I think that Harry did effectively manage to tear that down, saying that it is still a complete film. And because because so much of your rebuttal, your argument was the sequel thing, I thought that Harry was able to effectively dismantle that completely in his final rebuttal there. So I am going to give it to Harry on that one.
I will go as well. I thought, again, I love this. This has been such a good bracket for the arguments where, you see some of these sometimes where the arguments, you're kind of like, oh, I'll throw it out because this isn't my pick for the film. But this has been so strong from everybody and there's so much passion about it. I absolutely love it. Overall, I did think Harry had the strongest. The thing about completing the film inside of one movie, yeah, I think it did concentrate a little bit on the sequels that it wouldn't complete. And again, like saying Hiccup wasn't this great character, which I think he's so well rounded. The poor kid loses a leg after all. Spoiler. But yeah, I just thought overall Harry's argument was the stronger, and I will put How to Train Your Dragon through as well.
So I lost about 15 seconds of internet on Harry's opening minute, so I've got to apologise. I don't know if it blanked out. However, I did hear mainly the build-up of the sequel. I thought Tate did well to tear it down. I thought he defended Ratatouille well, but so much time wasted for Harry to back it up with the sequel thing. I think that lost the momentum there. So I'm pushing Harry through, albeit I missed 15 seconds of Harry's opening minute. So apologies if anyone got cut out then. But I did hear the rest of it. So How to Train Your Dragon goes through.
Okay, and oh man,
this is the fight I've been looking forward to, Chris.
We come to it at last. I don't have a towel handy, but if
How exciting is this argument going to be?
Chris, you took my pick with Anomalisa, so you better defend this film for your fucking life.
I'll do my best, but have you seen the film that I'm up against, my friend?
I have, and do you know? I've said my words already. I think that Anomalisa. I've got arguments in my head which I think would do very well against the certain other film that it's up against, but we will see.
Okay.
So that being said, we have the final match of round one, which scares me a little. Actually,
Me? What about me?
Did a lot of. Yeah, but you know how depressing Charlie Kaufman films are. Anyway, that's not my minute. So the first we have Toy Story versus Anomalisa. I've got the clock. Dave, tell me when and I'll go.
Whenever you are good to go, sir, I shall start your timer.
Woody is an insufferable arsehole throughout this entire film. He's one of the most detestable, dislikable people. Yet we grow to love this character across this one film. He has his own redemption arc. Bring it, and that is down to the beauty of Tom Hanks's performance. Tom Hanks is great in this, but not as good as Buzz Lightyear, who steals everything. Very much reflection on society of the last few decades, the science fiction versus the westerns, how cinema evolved, and this film so perfectly replicated that in the 90s of Toy Story, a film about kids and their love. Look at me, I've got toys in my cabinets there. You can still see I'm not over it. You still wake up thinking at night times that, shit, do they move? We don't know. Toy Story is not just generational, it evolved everything. The first film to be fully made on a computer, fully rendered in 3D. The opening Pixar film that set the standards for the 25 plus years that we are now having this film in our lives for. Toy Story is without a doubt the greatest animated film in the history of cinema. I'm just going to say that right now as we speak. It's just done things, it's had that effect on generations, whether they're watching the new ones, the old ones. You can always go back to Toy Story 1, and that takes everything away from this.
The people behind Anomalisa said they wanted to allow you to forget that you were looking at something animated and just become wrapped up in the scene. And that's what this did. As an animated feature, this did push the boundaries for me, because you do get to that point where the stop motion animated puppets do almost transcend animation. And it does feel like you're watching a real life live action drama, which is an incredible feat for any film to do, especially animation, to get to that level. It tells the story of a guy who's completely alienated and disconnected from the world. Everyone he sees in his everyday life has exactly the same face, exactly the same voice. And because you have that art form of animation to do that, you can get some really, really creative shots and just really play up that sense of alienation and loneliness that he feels. And it's not until he meets this one other character who breaks that tradition, who has her own voice, who has her own appearance. And it's this kind of budding love story almost, but he's still plagued by these insecurities and these visions of that everything's all just sort of like a machine, really. Everything's
time. Is it ready? Sorry.
Yeah, whenever you're ready.
So
sir.
you mentioned that. My issue with Anomalisa is that it doesn't need to be an animated film. You can have that sense. You can have everybody else appearing in live action. It doesn't need to be animated. It's just Charlie Kaufman trying another depressed thing with a bit of a gimmick added onto it. Toy Story cannot work in live action. Someone actually went and did it. It doesn't work. Seeing the animation firsthand, that technology being at the forefront that set the standards for the 25 years that's followed it. Anomalisa was an interesting film, I think, to say at the absolute least, but it just doesn't have that impact upon you as a viewer.
The problem is with Toy Story, it's just another archetypal odd couple buddy cop story. You know, the odd couple essentially protagonist there. And also in terms of the animation with Toy Story, in terms of its own genre of 3D animation, it has aged terribly. There are better films now with the animation, whereas with stop motion or hand drawn, it stands the test of time. You can watch that at any point. You can go back to any year, and the animation still is incredible. Whereas Toy Story has aged. There are better films out there that followed a few years after that film. So in terms of the animation as an animated film, oh, damn it.
Oh, two really good arguments there.
Oh, I need to drink.
Couldn't be more different films. Here's a depressing adult film, and here's a kids film like Toys. And that is round one, everyone.
I'll go first if you like.
Go for it.
Please.
I'm going to give this one to Chris. And to me, it was just on the strength of that closing argument, that strength of it's not a good-looking film anymore, whereas Anomalisa is. And I think that's such a huge, important point that I imagine George would have had some sort of comeback to that if you didn't have the chance, but sadly you didn't. And I think that point just there left dangling just stole it for me. So yeah, I'm going to give it to Chris.
Oh god. Oh, this is such a tough argument. They have both argued really, really well. I loved George taking us through. This was the first 3D animated movie, but I also love the Anomalisa's argument that they wanted you to move past animation and for you to see something else behind the characters that were showing you. And oh my word, this is so tough. I think overall the only thing that kind of won this for me, and literally the only kind of it was on the last point as well, was how the animation has aged from when it was started. Yes, at the time it was groundbreaking, but I think that is a really good argument that now you can go back to a lot of other animated movies that were around that time and see a great animation style. And I think for me that gives this to Anomalisa.
I said it was a dark horse. I said it was a dark horse. That was a very tough argument. There was a few points where it was teetering backwards and forwards.
Definitely.
And I wanted to eliminate any bias. Honestly, if that would have gone to a tiebreak, I would have sent Toy Story through. I would have given the point to George. The arguments were really even, but George really did attack Anomalisa quite well. And Chris, you didn't mention the fact that Anomalisa was done in other formats. It would have completely ruined George's thing about saying you could have done it in anything else other than animation, that it has already been done in other things other than animation. But I would have given it to George in the end, but that point is moot because Anomalisa has gone through.
I was going to say I'd already figured that out on the rebuttal, so we've already got the graphic for you all at home. Chris smashed that. So, I knew during the rebuttal. That's probably the big. Is that the biggest upset? Is Kubo or is it Anomalisa?
I'd say it's the first two and the last one are like the most shocking. I think, you know, in terms of those like big hitters in animation. You know, like Mononoke, Beauty and the Beast, like and that. Yeah, wow, Jesus.
So I'm going to quickly, if anyone needs a break, as always, if you need a quick one, round one's the best time to go. We're going to quickly read out round. We're going to quickly read out round two. So up first, we have Kubo and the Two Strings versus South Park, bigger, longer, and uncut. Then we have Spider-Man into the Spider-Verse versus an animated film.
Your
name. Sorry, I always keep getting them mixed up. Then we have The Lion King versus Shrek 2. And then we have How to Train Your Dragon versus Anomalisa. So, round one, I think went quite well. I'm quite proud of myself.
That was incredible.
A lot of surprises, a hell of a lot of surprises, more surprises than I thought they would be in this one. Yeah, I'm still
That's-
kind of reeling after that last one, to be honest. I'm not quite sure how that happened.
You argued that very well. Once you brought in the aging, I was sat there like, shit. So I know I should have said Toy Story 2.
George, you know,
Yeah.
I know.
how long I was agonizing to think of anything against Toy Story because I couldn't do it. And that was the one thing that I thought of. And I thought, if you have this laundry list of points against Anomalisa and I've got that one thing, like...
I'll be honest, when you went in with the buddy cop stuff, I was like, "Oh, fucking hell! I've never thought of it from that angle." But no, that was a really good argument. I did say from the start, Anomalisa is a dark horse in that bottom corner.
We'll see how it goes in the next one, but yeah, there's some. I mean, Kubo versus South
Park.
South Park against anything is a fight I want to see in a bracket.
It was so hard to argue against. Like, it's just so out there.
So I think we still have a pick from everyone, don't we?
Yeah, we do.
Everyone's still on the board. Everyone's on the board.
Let's see for how much longer.
Hi everyone.
Oh boy.
Do we have anyone in the comments just so it can give me some more time to finish typing this? Sorry, guys. People.
No comments at the moment.
People, if people are watching and commenting along, I want to know what you think the biggest upset from that round was, because I'd be intrigued to find out whether you thought it was the last fight or the first fight. Like, which one do you reckon?
I'm not going to say anything because I'm going against Kubo.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Tate, you looked very shocked when Kubo went. You looked about as
I
shocked.
was quite shocked, actually.
Like,
I didn't plan for I was thinking Beauty and the Beast. Okay, maybe I could take a shot at it, but I'm not likely to get through. I didn't plan for either Princess Mononoke or South Park, so I'm thinking on the fly here. It's the last one, so I'm going to go all out if I can.
No, I'm not looking forward to. I'm sorry, Karen.
No,
Harry.
I'm not looking forward to going up against Anomalisa or whatever it's called. It's the only film here that I haven't seen, so naturally it's one I have to fight against.
It's fantastic.
So yeah,
it's a fight a film you haven't seen, doesn't it, Harry?
Chris is there like Homelander like destroyed me last people at home that watch it. Chris has seen all of The Boys within a week of that happening.
Within a week.
So we converted him. We've converted him. It's all good. It's all love. But anyway, so round 2, everyone. Up first, we have Tate and Kubo in the 2 strings versus myself and South Park, bigger, longer, and uncut. Tate,
whenever you are ready.
These 2 films are both different forms of stop animation. South Park started out as kind of the paper cutout style of animation, and slowly throughout the years, even past the film and stuff like that, it has gone to kind of a more digitalized version of itself. What really stands between these 2 films is what the films stand for. One film stands to send out a message to people and to educate people on various different things, take you on an emotional ride, an emotional journey. The other one is literally, as it says in the title, a bigger, longer, uncut version of a standard episode. And that's all you get. You've already learnt the morals, you already know what you're getting with the show and stuff like that. And it doesn't really add much more than the shows have previously done, does it? It doesn't. You see the same characters come back, you see the same villains come back and everything like that, and it's literally just put up on the big screen with a couple of musical numbers thrown in. Kubo has so much more to add to its film, along with the animation being unbelievably better. I mean, me and Chris watched this film. We stayed beyond the credits just to watch the perfect animation of them putting up all the models together, and it looks so beautiful. You stood there in awe watching the film. South Park, you giggle.
Well, of course, Kubo looks better. It's like, 20 years younger than it? That's ridiculous. And you mentioned TV. Tell me a good South Park episode that came before the South Park movie that's better than the South Park movie. I'll up you one more. Tell me a better South Park episode or moment that came after the South Park movie. It is the pinnacle. It is the peak of South Park as a series. And it needs to like the TV show, or else it fails as a TV adaptation like the video games did. It needs to do it perfectly. And you mentioned what more is it than laughs. I'll tell you something. My issue with Kubo is that after everything, the villain, he loses his memory, he comes back, and they're all just fine with it. This is the man that tortured them, tormented them, and they just wipe his memory and they're all cool with it. Absolutely not. Can you imagine if they, on this film, had Saddam Hussein was like, sorry, Saddam, you've changed, which is quite literally a song from the film. But no, he has the death he really deserves because he's such an evil bastard. You get the satisfaction. You do not get that from Kubo and the Two Strings. It is a massive cop-out. And only staying in the credits because, to be fair to Chris, he always does, which knows the point anyway. But I have far more...
The villain losing his powers at the end and being a confused person in society is basically down to him being blinded by rage. That's the whole point of his story. That's the whole point of the film. You've missed it completely. And South Park, Scott Tenorman Must Die, the one where he eats the chili, that's a better episode, and that's before the film. Kubo does everything better, and yes, sure, it's a younger film. That's because animation has moved on. South Park hasn't. That's the point. The film wasn't the peak of the show. It's got better over the years. It's remained relevant. Kubo will stand the test of time.
Oh, that was a good argument. That was a really good argument.
George has to go again.
30 seconds.
Oh, sorry. My bad.
Get the timer out.
Get the timer out. No, do it.
It's ready.
Sorry.
Scott Tenorman Must aired on July the 11th, 2001. Get in the bin. It is not better anyway. I'm going to add that in. Then you say I missed the point. I don't miss the point. It just didn't work for me. Maybe that's me as an individual, but I didn't miss the point at all. It's just unsatisfying as a viewing experience. My viewing experience, you know what you're going in for. You know you're going to piss yourself. You know you're going to laugh. You're going to have a fantastic time watching it, and I get all of that. And that's why South Park's film everyone revisits. Not many people even talk about Kubo, and it's been, 2-3 years now? It's pretty much almost forgotten at this point in time.
Sorry there. Got a bit trigger happy on that one, didn't I? You lose track. You just go into autopilot, you just listen to the arguments. I lost track. Sorry about that.
I apologize for missing up on the dates as well.
I'm going to give this to Tate. Taking into consideration the flub with the date, I still do think that Tate had the stronger argument. He went into the themes of the story and the animation. You mentioned the credits where you see them piecing everything together. But the one that really clinched it for me was that South Park has stayed the same. Which, let's be honest, in terms of the animation, it has remained consistent with that style. Even the movie, it didn't sort of up the ante in terms of the animation there. I just think Tate sort of went more in depth into Kubo. Thought it was a nice sort of development from his initial first argument in round one. Even with the date flub, I am going to give it to Tate on that one.
I am going to go the other way and give this to South Park. I just thought the flub was bad. The date thing with this was a better episode than it was before, and that was kind of trying to take away from George's initial argument of how it had been the best episode to that point. And I think that really worked in favor of George's argument. There was some really, again, I absolutely am loving this episode. It's just the arguments are so much more passionate than they are a lot of the time, and it's such a really good thing. Hopefully everyone gets to see this. It's so good. But yeah, overall, I just thought George's argument for South Park, and yes, the animation, like Ted said, hadn't moved on, but George said that's the TV show it's based on, so it stuck with that format and stayed with it. So for me, South Park.
So I had the unenviable task of deciding what goes through, but luckily I have come to a decision, and I'm going to send through Kubo and the Two Strings, because I think, regardless of Tate's flub, you also mentioned your argument, George, that there was no better episode that comes after it, which kind of eliminates the whole point of the Tate flub anyway. As well, I think even your opening argument, you said, yeah, Kubo looks better because it's younger. And I was like, yeah. And then there was no defense against that. Like that to me doesn't seem like an argument. Just because it's older doesn't mean it's better. And so I think there's a few times that you shot yourself in the foot. So I think I'm going to give this one to Tate.
Ooh, okay.
There
we go.
South Park has done far better than
Right.
So, I'm shocked that it's beaten those two.
I will say though, it's been a long time since I've seen South Park the movie. This has made me want to go back and rewatch it because I do have a lot of fond memories of that film.
Come on, guys!
Oh, and people, Basketball is now on Netflix if you've never seen that. I know it's something. But no, so next up. Oh, sorry.
I just want to say, best South Park episode is Make Love, Not Warcraft, and that's just a fact.
Oh, yeah. Good point.
There's so many great ones. It's the best cartoon show still. It's been 20 years. But anyway, that's a different Brattler Brackets. Best South Park moment. Keep it going, guys. Spider-Man and the Spider-Verse against Harry. What was your pick? Please tell me the name. I don't want to get the pronunciation wrong.
Just your name.
Every
English
time.
word.
Every time.
Your name.
As in not my name.
Yeah, but the problem is, I
It feels like a sly dig every single time. Like,
I do feel
No,
attacked every single time.
It's because I've got the translations, but I don't want to butcher a translation, and then I don't want to say the wrong thing. It's your name, Kimi no Nawa, right?
You did butcher like Princess Mononoke at the start, so that's fair. Yeah.
No. Chris did say he'd be happy to say all the names out earlier. Like I did. Yeah, okay. I've got 1 minute on the clock. Someone
You
tell
have?
me.
When you are good to go, sir, you are good to go.
We live in this world where we get every year just superhero film for superhero film, except this year because of Corona. And it's sick and tired, and you just lose interest in all of them. Then along came Spider-Man's The Spider-Verse, was December 2018. That time of year, Aquaman was out as a humongous film, and everyone was raving, and there was no interest in this film until the first couple of trailers came. And you were just blown away with the animation, and then you're invested in the story. You go to the cinema, you watch this, and you are visually having an experience like nothing before. As a kid that grew up with this, is one of my favorite comic characters of all time. Seeing the justice done, getting these big names in here, there, Kingpin in little bits. You got Ultimate Green Goblin coming in. It was so satisfying, not just as a film fan, but as a sort of Spider-Man fan myself. And then to have the heart wrench off the Tobey Maguire, they're providing inspiration from the greatest one that ever lived. You got all this nostalgia kicking pieces, and then you're watching Spider-Man die. You see Peter Parker get killed in the opening third, and that's powerful. You get one of Stanley's finest cameos in one of his last roles when he has got the suit and saying it's not about the suit. It is just beautiful cinema. And I haven't even spoke about the cinematography for an animated film.
You talk there about how nobody really cared about this film before the trailers came out, and I don't think that's necessarily true, but I understand the point that you're trying to make. That being said, let's have a look at Your Name, which is a film by a Japanese man called Makoto Shinkai that before Your Name came out, nobody had ever heard of. Nobody knew anything about this cinema. Nobody, bar like some hardcore weebs, knew much about Japanese cinema at all, but this film blew up. There are so many people I know who do not like anime that have watched this film. It has such a huge cultural impact that I don't think Spider-Man was able to capitalize on. If we're talking about the actual like animation itself, is it better to do something new, or is it better to do something old and do it perfectly? Because to me, I think doing something perfectly is better than trying something new. Because I think that with Your Name, they were able to take this traditional 2D animation and just elevate every single aspect of it to the next level. It is gorgeous. The music is amazing. The voice acting is stellar. There is not a single flaw with it in regards to the style of animation. There is nothing wrong with that. I talked before, they mentioned cutting a cucumber look beautiful. Like, every little aspect of that.
You speak about doing something new. This did something new. It did it perfectly as well. This new animation style stuck with everybody. You talk about the influence of this film. I'm sorry, but they're doing a live action Spider-Verse film because they're desperate to get the real Spider-Man back because of how successful this animated film is. This is now impacting a $20 billion franchise because of this little animated film. And you talk about the impact. These come out, 2 years apart from each other? I don't think you can say anime wasn't that big. If you wanted to talk about the history of getting that genre bigger, then you've got to look at fundamental things such as Akira and Spirited Away. They've done far more for that world than
Time.
I don't disagree that Akira and Spirited Away are very important films. However, I do disagree that anime was in any way mainstream before Your Name came along. Nobody talked about any of the Studio Ghibli films since Spirited Away. Your Name was huge. It blew up massively, and I think that the impact of it just cannot be understated whatsoever. I think that Spider-Verse may in time become such an important film. However, currently that is not the case. It hasn't had the time to sit. It hasn't had the time to develop that legacy, whereas Your Name has been able to give itself this lasting strength that people are still talking about this film 4 years down the line. It's still such a popular film.
Time.
That to me was the closest fight I think we've had.
Very, very well fought. That was good.
That was right.
I'm not going to go first on this one. I'm still thinking. Tate's sipping.
I'm trying to get as long as possible until someone says something.
No, that's okay. Then that's fine. You guys sip away on your channel while you'll just throw somebody else into the deep end. Call yourself good, guys. Right. Okay. So that was another incredible fight. Now, look, this is the thing. I haven't seen Your Name at all. I haven't heard of Your Name until I saw the bracket today. So but it still just argued the point so well that it's had this impact on everything. Now, because that's not where my interest in film lies, maybe that's why I haven't heard of it. The thing that kind of swung me and swung Spider-Man. Sorry. Was the saying there was no cultural impact to Spider-Man, which I think having this black kid for the Spider-Man character to take this film forward for me is a really moot point. And I think it's harder because I haven't seen Your Name for me to kind of go the out and have this cultural impact it had and how it blew up. So for me, just the death of Peter Parker, the animation style, George overall took the out, which is for me a stronger argument in terms of how good Spider-Man was.
I'm gonna go next because I think your argument about it being old and new, I quite like that angle that you took with it. I like the fact that you kept on kind of coming back to the things that the film brought forward with Your Name. I really liked all of the elements you talked about it. But the second you mentioned cultural impact and Into the Spider-Verse, that's one of the biggest things going for that film. And I know George didn't mention it, but from just alone on the stuff that he mentioned, the fact that they are putting money towards a film, trying to get all the Spider-Men together just because of this film is just, it completely obliterated that point beyond reason. So I'm sending Spider-Man through.
Oh my god. There was actually a really good argument to be had there, which was said by Harry, I think, where he said, is it better to go back and do something old but make it perfect, or whether to attempt something new? I think that's actually a really interesting argument. It would be a good conversation at some point. Oh my god, this is tough. And yeah, I'm the same as Dave in that I obviously haven't seen Your Name, which was very apparent when I argued against it. So it is difficult to sort of not get in the headspace of that film, what it's trying to achieve. I do think I am going to give it to George, though. I think it was a good argument how he was able to defend his pick, saying that it has transcended the film, and in the industry itself, like Sony are going to go and develop something live action based on the success of this film that it had. I thought it was a really, as I said, though, I thought that was a really, really neck and neck argument all the way throughout.
Superb.
And I felt like I got a lot more from Your Name in that argument. I thought it built on well, but I think the cultural aspect as well, and just that what he said about the film as well, going into the wider Marvel universe as well, I think George just took that one just by a little bit.
That was one of my favourite arguments. So thank you, Harry.
No, I think that's fair.
Awesome.
It is impossible to argue against that film.
Well, thanks for saying that, because I've got to do it again. The second time.
Hey, you were first, but you picked Ratatouille, not Spider-Verse.
No. Oh. Wait.
Yeah.
When we were picking, yeah, no, I was no. Do you know what? I was happy to pick Ratatouille. I was absolutely happy to pick Ratatouille. I think that film was phenomenal. But yeah.
Go again. Sorry. So
This is the penalty for doing well in Battle of the Brackets. You have to keep it consistent. Like no stopping.
So next up first,
It's really hard. Just because, sorry, I was say it's really hard when you go so heavy or so hard at these films that you love, and you give all these amazing points out, and it gets through, and you're like, oh, all right, now new points. Okay.
I'm quite fearful of this because this is me versus Chris, and this is The Lion King versus Shrek 2.
This is another one. It's like another Toy Story pick. Like,
but I know research is easier against this than that. But I've got a minute on the clock, so I'm going to go first. So when someone's ready, let me know, and I'm going to try.
You are good, my friend.
The Lion King has changed everything, and I'm going to keep reiterating this point because it truly has. You look at what this film did, forget the live action stuff that came after. This then became a New York Broadway play. This is on the London West End. The impact this film has had is incomparable to anything of Shrek. And yes, there was a Shrek Broadway play that did come, and it went so very quickly. Not celebrating any 20th anniversaries. Everything comes down to the core of this. From the villainous Scar, fantastic, played by Jeremy Irons, one of the greatest villain performances in modern history. I'm sorry, but he's got nothing on the fairy godmother. Sorry, he's got everything on the fairy godmother and Prince Charming. Every time he's on the screen, it commends it. And because of that Shakespearean history of him being a theatre actor, all of his conversations, whether it's with the powerhouse that is James Earl Jones, or if you're with of the guy from Ferris Bueller's Day Off, where I always forget the name of the murderer. When they're all together, you think of every single word. It leaves you. You're hanging on to it. You want to hear them talk. And it's so sad that this film is short because you could easily have an hour longer version.
What this comes down to for me between these two films is the writing. Shrek 2 is one of the strongest, most tightly written screenplays to any film out there. From a comedic standpoint, from a film with its morals, it has everything. You want to talk about villains and how Scar's an amazing villain? I think he's a terrible villain. I think he is compelling right up until the point he becomes king. When he becomes king, what does he do? He lounges around and sings "I've Got a Lovely Bunch of Coconuts" and does absolutely nothing, no contribution to the plot, and every single villainous aspect and determination that character has before that point is completely ruined by the ending of that film. Also, our protagonist, Simba, is an asshole. From the beginning of the film, he is not a likable protagonist. He is selfish. He even has a whole musical number of how he wants to be a selfish, tyrannical ruler. That is not a compelling protagonist. The love story. Can you feel the love tonight? No, I can't, because it's not developed. Their development of their relationship is through a musical number. There's no talking. There's no getting to know each other or reconnecting. It's all done through a musical number. It's so easy.
The difference is that my film doesn't need a predecessor to set everything up. You go on about how tight your script is. It's because your first film set that up. It did the romance. It did that. Shrek and Fiona's not likable. Once it's revealed she's an ogre, it's kind of done from there. You're going about how tight it is, but unfortunately, it's not memorable. You picked the wrong Shrek films to be arguing. You're going about how Scar isn't this. His only goal is to be king. He never says how he's going to rule, what he's going to rule. He just wants to be king. It's a status symbol. That's why he's saving us. He killed his own goddamn brother. Nothing in Shrek. The Gingerbread Man, yours is just comedy. Mine is heart. Mine is everything you want. This is the best animated film of all time.
Shrek 2 completely works as a standalone film on its own with regards to if it's a sequel or not. You have the introduction of new characters, fan favorite characters. You have Puss in Boots, played brilliantly by Antonio Banderas. And I will actually disagree with you on the villain front. I think the Fairy Godmother is a very different villain from what we've seen. It's the archetypal fairy tale character that always helps out, but she has her own agenda in this, ties it in with Prince Charming, which works into the legacy of the first film as well, the origin story with Princess Fiona. It's beautifully connected, but it still can work as a standalone as well. And you say that Shrek 2 doesn't have heart. It absolutely does.
Time.
Very well thought.
Chris
is in pain.
I'm gonna go.
Anguish, yeah.
I'm gonna go first here, and I'm giving the point to Shrek 2. Holy shit, that opening argument, Chris. Fucking hell. You went in so hard there. And George did a very good with the rebuttal, attacking Shrek. But Chris, you defended it very well there at the end. And it does come down to that whoever goes first gets a disadvantage because that goes afterwards. But that opening argument was just unbelievable. I've never thought of The Lion King in those different ways. I've never kind of questioned my love for The Lion King. And you've gone and done that. So I'm giving it to Shrek 2.
Oh my god.
Yeah, I'm going to do the same. Again, that opening argument was just absolutely brutal. He didn't just like kill Lion King, he just beat the shit out of him. It was brutal. And like, George, you did a great job recovering from that. I thought, like, given the strength of that opening argument, I thought your rebuttal was fantastic. But even so, like, there was just no coming back from that. That was just a gunshot to the head. So yeah, I'm giving this one to Chris.
And again, we're going to go 3 for 3 because I thought the opening argument again of that was just incredible. That going to the writing and how tightly it's written, the morals, and I love the attack on Scar as a villain. As like, well, he does this and he stops. And you're right, the Fairy Godmother is this betrayal that you would never expect. I thought it was really good. George kind of took away from me a little bit when he's like how it changed everything and went on to Broadway. But you're right, and then brought out that Shrek also went to Broadway and did the musical thing as well. So it kind of was like, yeah, well, it did. It has that same legacy as well. Maybe not as big, but it did follow in its footsteps. So yeah, for me, just the opening argument was a smash and grab, and well done. Shrek 2 goes through.
Chris, that had shades of Tom arguing against Blade Runner for me.
Yeah. I feel dirty after arguing against it.
You've taken out Hunchback and Lion King. You've taken out Hunchback and Lion King with Shrek 2.
I can only applaud that because I'm proud of that. He's been to the school of like pure anger. Like he knows what I mean. If anyone's going to attack, they'll always get my vote. I'd have voted against myself.
And again, as you said, like it's easy to argue against things you love, right? As you said, like
Superb.
So next up, we have Harry versus Chris. We have How to Train Your Dragon versus Anomalisa.
This is going to be
Harry,
fun.
you're first.
Jesus.
Whenever you're ready, Harry.
I haven't seen Anomalisa, and so that's going to put me at a massive disadvantage here. However, from what I've gathered from a brief Google search and just a little bit of skimming, it is a very interesting film. I think it's undeniable that it's an interesting film. I don't think interesting necessarily means good film. I think that interesting can mean just interesting. Whereas How to Train Your Dragon is a simple premise. It's a children's story essentially filled with humor and heart and just it's just a pleasant experience to sit down and watch. However, it is executed so beautifully. The character arcs are so wonderful. Again, both of these films tackle the feeling of loneliness, but I feel that the way that How to Train Your Dragon tackles it is just so much more accessible. Just because something's arty doesn't necessarily mean that it's good. Something that is accessible and can appeal to many people is one of the main appeals of animation, because it is marketed to such a wider audience than such other ones, that it has to have this mass appeal. And I think that How to Train Your Dragon absolutely does that. It makes even the smallest child have this ability to think, oh, wow, I don't fit in during this. But now I can. But if I keep working and I do this or I do that, then I can make it someday. And I think that's a fantastic message.
Accessible is just another word for cliche, my friend. The themes and the story tropes of How to Train Your Dragon have been done to death. The unlikely friendship that eventually becomes, the antagonistic relationship that eventually turns into a friendship. It's been done. And you talk about the humor. Granted, Anomalisa doesn't have. It's mostly devoid of humor. But if humor was in Anomalisa, that would completely dismantle the theme and the tone of the film overall. And if you're talking about humor, I don't even think the humor in How to Train Your Dragon is that good anyway. The strength of that film is Hiccup and Toothless, but you have that whole onslaught of comic relief characters, Christopher Mintz-Plasse character and all the other ones, which is terrible writing, horrible characters that just eat up the runtime in that first How to Train Your Dragon movie. Anomalisa, I haven't seen a film like this, not only just in animation, but in live action, in film in general. What this film was able to achieve and transcend animation and make you see real characters and real emotions that I've never seen talked about in a film before, going into all those themes and using animation to tell that story and that artistry, it's absolutely incredible.
Cliches are only cliches when they're done poorly. I do not think they're done poorly in How to Train Your Dragon. When they're done well, they become archetypes. You have these characters set into these specific roles. That's why you have all these extra side characters that have all these different conflicting viewpoints, because it allows the people watching it to be able to relate, at least in some way, to one of these perspectives. You have this ability to transcend just a simple, basic story of boy meets dragon, dragon is friend, everyone's happy, because you have these underlying adult themes of loneliness, of acceptance, of trying to be something that you're not.
You want to talk about loneliness and acceptance. This whole film is based on loneliness and alienation, and it goes into it in a much more developed, mature way, and really just eats into like everything that feeling, that anyone feeling that would go through. And in terms of the animation as well, How to Train Your Dragon didn't use its animation to up the ante or develop its story in any way. Anomalisa uses the actual metal skeletons of the puppets beneath the masks and works that into the plot of feeling like everything's constructed, feeling like you're not real. Oh my God.
I'm going to go first on this one. Finally, Chris talks about the the construction and how that moves into the animation. I think that was a pretty even fight up until the point where Chris talked about something that I've been wanting him to do from the first round, which was talking about how the animation actually fits into the storyline. And that kind of sealed it for me. So I'm giving it to Anomalisa.
Dave?
Okay, then I am going to go the same way as Tate, and I am taking Anomalisa through. I thought the arguments again were both excellent, and How I Train Your Dragon is an exceptional film that I adore. Anomalisa, I've only seen the once, but you're right. The argument that really brought was literally in your last line before the rebuttal finally finished. That you took the style of how they make that, how they do the animation, to then also build inside of a character as well, and that for me was what won the argument.
George.
So, sorry, I'm just doing this. I would have also been with Anomaly, so I thought overall that was just a stronger argument by Chris. I think he did have that. I think you argued well with How to Train Your Dragon, but it comes at a disadvantage of not seeing the film you've gone against. And yeah, I think you're really right considering that. Yeah, it's hard, and I'm guessing you're using Google at the same time because that's the trusted thing. I think you do, don't we? But no, I think you did very well. But I think Chris just had more there, and that's with his passion for that film as well.
Would thoroughly recommend the film. It depends if you like Charlie Kaufman. It is a very depressing film.
It is phenomenal.
Yeah, I'd recommend people see it if they haven't checked it out.
So, guys, whilst we quickly do that is the quarterfinals done, round 2, however we want to say it. We now have the semi-finals lined up. So, Harry, it gives us great displeasure, but also in a competitive manner, lots of pleasure at the same time that you have been eliminated. And this is no denying. I know you weren't with us for the draft, but the three of us at the top here, we were just scared of you. And this
every time we do this, we're scared of Harry in some way. But
I think the difficulty of going for niche picks is it's hard to talk about a lot of the things that are great because you have to explain what the film is first.
And you get a minute, and you don't get the time to build up to the case. That being said, we do have the semi-finals lined up. We've got Kubo in the 2 strings versus Spider-Man and Spider-Verse. And then Chris, Shrek 2 versus Chris Anomalisa. I'll let you decide, obviously, when you get to it, which one you want to fight for, or if you want to submit one through, whatever you want to do, mate, that's on you. But Chris has a semi-final against himself, bros. It's George versus Tate once more, Tate. You're up first. I want to quickly. I'm actually nervous.
As a lineup on the picture, though, that looked great. Kubo and Into the Spider-Verse side by side with each other. So,
I fucking hate this. Why do I have to argue against this film twice in one bracket?
You are at first as well, which makes it even more daunting.
Don't even know how to open my argument. Okay, I'm gonna take. Do you know what? I'm gonna take a nervous piss break. To set the nerves before the round, because otherwise we'll get to the end of the bracket.
Geronimo with the court.
He's going to go beat himself up.
Okay.
This is not the final 4 that I expected.
He's just on Google now in the toilet.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, I don't think this has been heard of, has it, in the history of this is an outrage.
I want to slide.
This is very good.
A bit live for like 8 minutes.
Is he crying?
He's got the cliff notes out the back, just the cliff notes. Where is it? Come on.
Wait, has he gone for a number 1 or number 2? Did he specify? I can't remember.
Depends how
This is
researching.
definitely twosies. Definitely twosies.
World's longest piss. Like, wow, okay. This is... Oh, he's back. Oh, foul play. Possible foul play. Okay.
What do you mean my phone was here on the desk the entire time?
Okay.
You
can have spares.
And then I came back in. Okay. Am I going straight in?
You're first. When you're ready, the clock is ready.
Something that I absolutely love about Kubo is the fact that it delves into that mythos and it looks at building that backstory so well. A lot of the things that Into the Spider-Verse assumes is that you know a little bit about Spider-Man before going in and that you've seen at least one superhero film, which everyone has. Everyone would have seen a superhero film going into the Spider-Verse. But with Kubo, they take the time to build the characters up. They take the time to build up all of the scenes and build up the town, build up the people in the town. Every single person in this film is a different character. Every single person has a role to play. And that is so nice to see from the animation. The scenes at the start where Kubo is in the town square with the origami, it's so refreshing to see that character interact with the environments around them and interact with all the townspeople and have that relationship there. And as the story goes on, Kubo builds in character. All of the other characters, Monkey, Beetle, they all build in character. You learn more about the Moon Sisters. You learn more about the Moon King. And it all comes together at the end when Kubo is able to defeat the Moon King using the power of... Christ's sake.
Let's talk about mythos. Let's talk about Asia. Let's talk about this film because it covers all that stuff. And you know what this is? It's another whitewashed American film about Asian history. Everyone is whitewashed to the point not Travis Scott, sorry, that's a different person, to the director of this film had to then come out to address the criticisms. There's no point doing the mythos. There's no point doing an honest cultural depiction if you're going to do whitewashed. And the words he actually wrote was, in a live action film, what an act looks like is as important, if not more important than they sound like. Meanwhile, in animation, certainly background is absolutely a consideration. It is a consideration. Spider-Verse is completely culturally cast to the point. Every sort of character from a minority background has a minority actor to voice it, if you want to say it like that. That is a really big thing, and this is why this has that effect on people. There's none of that, we'll write you out, we'll get an A-lister in and do it. The biggest name in the animation in this is maybe what's his name from Sabretooth being Kingpin. It's not even that big. These guys didn't need the A-listers to try and sell it to people.
Talk about kind of the background stuff and the infighting and stuff like that went on about my film, but not actually talk about my film itself, because you don't really have much to say there. Kubo and the Two Strings is a fantastic animated film. We're looking for the best animated film of all time, and Kubo is an underrated masterpiece. It looks at those cultures, yes, and pays homage to them, and pays homage to the mythos, and tells a story that any culture can understand. That's what it goes to do. And the actual building of the animation is phenomenally done. It is so painstakingly done. And it is so perfect.
Talk about animation. This is the one that won Best Animated Film at the Oscars. Yours was nominated. Did lose to Zootopia or Zootropolis. I think we lose count these days. But mine is brand new animation. Yours has been done, but I think there's something about originality that is important. You mentioned it's got these Marvel. You don't need the background to Marvel films because it has a beautiful origin for every character introduced via a graphic novel, paying respect to its source material whilst delivering a perfect, not just voice cast performance, but a beautifully directed film with so much meaning, with so much going for it. It is a joy to watch, and you can see the impact this has had on the world.
Wow. Back to your corners. I'm going to give this one to George. I think that opening minute was just an atom bomb of absolute destruction. And yeah, wow. And the fact that he quoted the director, I can't believe he got away with that. The director saying that. That's
know about
mad.
that. That completely blindsided me.
Travis Knight, I think, was the name, wasn't it?
I thought of Travis Scott, and I was like, screw. So it's very Travis. But yeah, I was a bit nervous. I didn't want to say anything out of order, but yeah.
No, I think that was I think Tate, you did well to pick up the pieces, like when you sort of like backpedaled then and said, oh well, it's homaging. But I think that the devastation was done after that first minute for George, so I'm giving it to Into the Spider-Verse.
I'm actually going to disagree with that for the exact same reasons you put that forward, because I thought talking about the situation around the film was fantastic, but I think Tate's one opening line in the rebuttal that eliminated a good chunk of that was you criticised the situation surrounding the film and not the film itself. So I actually think a lot of that first minute, while an amazing point and definitely worth talking about, was so quickly, deflected. So I'm actually going to give it to Kubo, and I don't like it.
Well then, gentlemen, let's have a look at this, shall we? I thought it was actually really well. I think I agree with Harry when Tate said that you've talked about this behind the scenes thing, but that's not the movie. And I think that was a really, really well brought up point, because that argument of the whitewashing was one that took an intake. But like,
I don't know if I'm allowed to interject here, because I did want to fact check it, but he did say immediately after that comment that none of the characters, or most of the characters in the film, aren't even human.
Well, the human ones are white American. It's a someone out of Game of Thrones that voices him, right? A white Irishman. Yeah.
So let's. All right. Calm down. Right, we'll get into this again. So, I thought Tate really deflected that point really well. But then I just thought George had a stronger argument about the rest of the things, like the Oscar win and then this losing to Zootopia of all things, the Rabbit and Fox movie that want to do each other. And I just, with talking about the casting as well, I thought was really well put and really well-rounded argument. So with the behind the scenes and that, I just thought was the stronger argument for me, and I would go with Spider-Verse.
Really wish I had a second rebuttal there. Really wish I did.
It's always
now that Kubo is out, I do want to say that it was wrongfully robbed of that best animated feature, and I did mention it was underrated.
Best animated are just an absolute joke. Like the year the Frozen.
A lot of the time,
People don't go and watch the films like Kubo.
So I'll go to this one. Yeah,
it's normally like, what's the big Disney movie out? Well, that gets it first, and then
Not for Spider-Verse, though. Hey. Anyway, Chris, you are against yourself. Shrek against Anomalisa. Do you want to sort of tag in someone to cover one of the two? I don't know what your line of thinking is.
I want to get Harry back in the fight, so I would offer him Shrek 2. However, Harry, would you feel comfortable again going up against Anomalisa, a film you haven't seen, or would you rather me pass it to someone else?
To be honest, I'm happy sitting this one out because while I love Shrek 2 and it was on my shortlist, I just have no attacks against Anomalisa, so I think it'd be better if somebody who could went up against it.
That's fair. Tate,
Fair.
I believe you had Shrek 2 on one of your shortlists, didn't you?
I did.
Back in the fight, sir. You're taking Shrek 2, I'll take Anomalisa.
Oh boy. Against the film that you basically stole from me. Cool.
I'm not going to give you that, am I?
It was straight up retaliation for the Hunchback thing as well. It was like, fuck you, I'm taking Anomalisa. Oh
Dave,
boy.
Shrek 2 will be up first.
Timer is ready, gentlemen. Whenever you are ready to start, the time will go with you.
Something that we haven't actually talked about with Shrek 2 yet is the fantastic voice acting that comes into it. People always say, oh, Mike Myers, he puts on the Scottish voice, stuff like that. But the actual lines that he delivers in this film are phenomenal. Same with Eddie Murphy as Donkey. They are so much better delivered in the second film than they are in the first film. This film is great moment after great moment strung together. It keeps you always on the edge of your seat. There are moments in Anomalisa where it lulls, it sits back, and the rhythm doesn't quite get going with the film. It just doesn't quite get there to the line. It's a very slow burn, and with animation, you've got to make sure it counts when it does. And Shrek does that on every single count, down to the music used in the film, down to the setting used in the film, down to the characters used in the film, the interactions used in the film. Everything propels the story forwards. Everything feels like you are motioning towards the end of the film, towards the climax. And the climax is phenomenal. You said it already. It is the best animated scene in any of these films combined. And it is at perfect timing with a brilliant rendition of I Need a Hero.
Time.
When it comes to voice cast, though, Shrek 2 gets to the point where it's just sort of, let's just bring in all these celebrities, and it diminishes the characters themselves because you cease to see them as characters, and it's just, oh, well, that's Eddie Murphy, that's John Cleese, that's Jennifer and that's Antonio Banderas, and that overshadows the characters because it's just sort of bring in whichever celebrity of the week's available for this role. Whereas the very small voice cast, and actually there's only 3 voices for Anomalisa. You've got David Thewlis, Jennifer Jason Leigh, and Tom Noonan, who is literally credited as everyone else. That works into the narrative, and that smaller cast of characters adds more to the drama and the story it's telling. And the fact that David Thewlis' character does view everyone as this uniform voice, this uniform look, and everything around him just blends into a blur of grey. And it's just him, just like an isolated man in a sea of sameness. And it's Jennifer Jason Leigh's voice that breaks through that, and that's the whole crux of the story. So it uses voice acting to the credit of its story and the themes that the film is telling.
The film is a direct adaptation from the radio play. So what you're really commenting on here is the radio play itself, where there is only 3 voices in it. So there should only be 3 voices in the actual film. And the film just keeps on stuttering. It keeps on, oh, we're getting to a point, and no, it's slowing down again, and it's slowing down again. It keeps on doing that. When you watch an animated film, when you watch any film, you want to be entertained all the way through. You want to be on the edge of your seat. You want to be getting up and cheering, which you actually do with Shrek. You are so engrossed in the film.
Anomalisa has no lull in its story. It is that drama. It is that slow bit. It is that those dialogue scenes, those long dialogue scenes with characters where he is getting to know Jennifer Jason Leigh's character, and that catharsis in the character where he starts to break down and cry. You want those more intimate moments, and also it throws in some moments that are almost borderline psychological horror. There's just way more things at play in Anomalisa compared to Shrek 2, in my opinion. And Shrek 2, it's a fine sequel. It is what it is, but it doesn't do anything groundbreaking. It doesn't take that. And the radio play as well.
Time.
Damn it.
That was a great argument.
Oh,
Like every point was like so bang back. That was great.
It was like a visual representation of Pong.
Like every argument was counted, and every single rebuttal brought forward a new argument, which was then that was excellent. I really enjoyed that.
For Tate stepping in for Shrek 2, I thought it was really well put it together for an argument you weren't ready for, which was great as well. And you could see how much you both love Anomalisa as well. That really comes across, even no matter how much Tate's trying to disguise that behind. Oh God, no! Slow. Oh, tough one. Really tough.
I do think though, at the end of the day, it has got to be Anomalisa for this round. I do think that was argued was just a better argument for me. I think the voice acting argument at the start was so well countered that I just thought that was fantastic. I thought it was superb. So Anomalisa for me.
I'm kind of there, Dave? Have you fully decided? I can give you a bit more time, or
No, I know where I'm going with it. So
I'm Anomalisa. I think it was Shrek. I think Tate did really well with Shrek, considering you brought in like 2 minutes ago and you love Anomalisa. And I think Chris just had a lot more sort of weight in his arguments, which is obviously it's his pick too. So I think that was telling. So I'm putting Anomalisa through.
I'm the same. I went exactly the same way. The opening argument, the destruction of the voice acting thing, was absolutely incredible. A lovely point to bring out this 3-character thing. I just thought it worked so well, and just as much as you argued Shrek 2 really, really well. Finally, Eddie Murphy got a mention in these arguments. It was lovely. I just think, Anomalisa had the stronger argument.
I want to say I completely disagree with everything that I said for Anomalisa, and I'm going to be voting too for Anomalisa for this argument. Anomalisa completely swept it there in every single facet. Tate's arguments were completely wrong. Completely disagree with him. So yeah, send it through.
Are these like the terms and conditions at the bottom, like the fine print?
Yeah, no, I can't hide my love for Anomalisa. It is a truly fantastic film, and my kind of bet at the start that it'd be a dark horse is paying through.
And with that being said, we actually have a comment very quickly from Carl. I'm surprised no one went for Akira. Which
it was on my list.
I thought it would crop up. It's cropped up in an argument to a point, but not actually cropped up. However, that being, I mean, let's be honest, guys. For someone that's not big on animated films, I've loved doing this so far, and there are so many big names that haven't made it through. There is more.
I want to get around to it, but if we ever do a best animated scene, Shrek 2, I think, is an absolute. That's a first round pick, isn't it?
Oh, there's so many. But with that being said, we do need to get to the final. And we have Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse up against Anomalisa.
How did I get here? Like physically, how? This is oh my god!
I told you, Chris. It was a solid pick. It was going to be my number 3 pick.
Man,
this is your first time against Spider-Verse, isn't it, Chris? In the bracket.
Oh,
yeah,
good luck with that.
yeah. And,
Go have fun with that.
I'm like scrambling at my notes, like.
Well, and we will have a minute and a half on the clock. Is that correct for the first argument?
Yeah.
Yeah.
A minute and a half, and then is it a minute rebuttal?
Yeah.
Yes.
If you need the extra time, it's just there as a sort of yeah.
I'm just going to sit back and enjoy this argument because I think this is going to be very feisty.
That's going to be amazing. I can't wait. I really can't.
Right. This is a very high up final. I'm not going to lie.
I'm at first. Okay, Dave, tell me when.
When you want to start speaking and you're ready to go, sir, the timer will go with you.
So we're at the final now, Chris, and we have to answer the question, what is the best animated film of all time? This is the top, the crop, everything above. And Spider-Verse has to win this for the reasons we all know. In terms of not just animation, not just production, writing, script, story, everything. This is a perfect film that I don't think had any right to be perfect. There were questions going into this. The fact that this was able to do something brand new, something that hadn't been seen before, and I will say it again, they animated a comic book. As someone that grew up reading comics, you know, you see these films like, oh, they've come to life. I was like, it's live action, but sometimes you get a panel here and there. This looks like a comic book has been animated. I've gone to the cinema and I've seen this, from the cartoon vibe to the sort of the dots in between. It was just so well done. I had no idea it would look that good. And as a concept itself, bringing in the beautiful cinematography. I've not even mentioned one of my favorite shots in cinema is when the city is upside down and we have Miles Morales diving through with the lightning, the music, the build-up, the fact it made Post Malone listenable for a film is a really big thing going for this. And you just have to sit there and astonish, say, wow, you know, how have we reached this point? And we really have. And the best thing about this is that it felt new. It didn't feel like I was seeing another Spider film, another reboot, another this. Because they focused on Miles, it was such a beautiful thing to do because it's a new character we haven't seen that new audiences connect to, kids as well. No arguments and
time.
Into the Spider-Verse is a very good film, but perfect it is not, my friend. The pacing of the entire first act is completely frenetic, completely kinetic, and really does sort of like leave you exhausted, and not in a good way where you're sort of like, oh yeah, this is amazing, like I've left breathless. You just sort of sit back, like slow the hell down and establish something from the beginning. It is ridiculously paced. Obviously that sort of peters out towards the end, but a hero's only as good as its villain. And the villainous aspect of Into the Spider-Verse is incredibly lacking. You've got Kingpin, who's not, he's this sort of like time travel plot. He wants to get back to his wife. It's easily the most forgettable thing about that film. You do forget it. The focus is on all the different Spider-Men. And because you've got so many, you can't develop them all. They just sort of are boiled down to sort of character traits. You've got Spider-Man Noir, who is essentially just one trait the whole way through. He sees in black and white, and he sort of has like interpersonal monologues. That's it. And that goes for all the other characters as well. So it's juggling so much. It's having to establish a Spider-Verse, all these different characters. So the villainous aspect is just completely dropped. Whereas Anomalisa, it is a tightly written screenplay through and through, all the way through. It is written perfectly by Kaufman. Everything is executed to a genius level, to perfection in every way, down to the fact that it is animated. It was taken from that radio play, but the animation brought it more to life. He could do more things. He could go more artistic interpretations in terms of its use of being stop motion and even using the exoskeleton.
I disagree with the juggling, my friend. This is a good clown that's juggling 10 balls at once, and he catches all 10 and puts them in the sack. You mentioned the villain doesn't do anything. I'm sorry. He literally kills Peter Parker in the opening 30 minutes. When he punches down, you feel the pain. You get the beautiful funeral scenes. That's how you establish a villain. You kill off Peter Parker in the opening third. No one saw that coming. And you mentioned, again, I'm going to talk about Anomalisa now because I haven't really attacked it. I'm sorry, but yes, this is best animated film, but you want joy out of a film. You go to them for excitement, and it's just so not even boring. It's just depressing. And I know all his films are, and it's a boring cliche, but if you're not depressed enough, let's just go and watch Anomalisa, shall we? You going to the cinema, you're going to watch these films because you want to find some excitement. You want to leave the real world behind for a bit, and you can get that in Spider-Man. You just don't get that with Anomalisa. It's just another drab, depressing thing. You can look at any of his other films if you want to feel that. Whereas Spider-Verse, you can look at the director's cinematography, even the writers of sort of Phil Lord, Chris Miller. They got sacked off Star Wars, then produced this.
You talk about how Kingpin's this really strong and imposing villain at the beginning of the film, which, yes, he is. I'll give you that. When he has his final showdown with Miles, he has ample opportunity to do exactly the same thing. When we can see that he has that power to one-inch punch, done, and end a character, he has ample opportunity. He waits for, it's the cliches again, he waits for the hero to monologue, distract him, obviously, and, he turns his back, which allows Miles to get the final thing in. It's so played out, and it diminishes Kingpin's character, which was already a weak character. Anomalies, and no, I don't, just saying that it's depressing or whatever. I go to a film to see the strength of its storytelling, whether it is sad, happy, funny, scary, whatever it happens to be. That genre, that story being told effectively and with absolute point precision execution all the way through. And that's exactly what Anomalisa is. Completely elevated stop motion animation for me, which to me was an art form which had kind of stagnated. This almost borderlined into live action for me. It was that good. You see the characters, you see the emotion. And
very well played.
Well thought.
Wow. Well done, gentlemen. Well done.
It's hot. I kind of regret wearing a hoodie. It's boiling.
I will go first here. That was a very good fight between both of you. Very, very good. What it came down to in the end was that Chris attacked so much on Spider-Verse in areas where we hadn't seen it attacked before. And the point that George made, the single point that he made against Anomalisa, he immediately defended. And George, I know you didn't get a second rebuttal, but there wasn't enough defense for me on the points that Chris was making. And he spent a lot of time doing that, but he did also talk a lot about his film as well and what made it elevated to a second level. So I'm going to give it to Anomalisa.
Okay, well, I'm going to jump in before Harry does, just because I don't want to make this final decision. And I am going to kind of make it so, unfortunately, Harry has to, because I'm going to give this to George and Spider-Verse. One of my big things was that in Chris's first argument, he spoke for nearly a minute and 15 seconds on Spider-Verse before he even started on Anomalisa. And
An enemy.
I just thought, an enemy. Yeah, sit down before I hurt myself. Anyway. I just thought, for overall, this argument of, and it's really hard because it comes down to personal choice in movies, and I think that's really hard when you're trying to listen to an argument, but you also have feelings on the way a movie should make you feel. And for me, the argument of going to the cinema to escape the world that's around you and to take some joy out of those moments. Whereas this Anomalisa is just, I mean, it's an incredible movie, and I'm not going to take anything away from that. You argued it so well, but for me, the argument for me made more sense in my head for Spider-Man.
Okay, lucky me, I get to decide then. If you guys want to send me bribes, my PayPal is. For me, like, I think that was really, really closely fought, but I think ultimately I'm going to have to give it to Anomalisa, which annoyingly is the only one I haven't seen, so obviously I'm going to have to do that tomorrow. But yeah, to me, it comes down to the fact that George, your argument was based on it being depressing, and you're like, you don't go to the cinema to be depressed, you go to enjoy it, and like that's fair. But lots of people do go to the cinemas to be depressed because it's still a valid emotion. And I felt that was a weak argument that I felt that Chris immediately pounced upon and was able to pull apart. So I think just on the strength of Chris's argument, his attack rather, and that defense at that one point, I'm going to have to give it to Anomalisa. But that was very, very close.
I didn't expect this night to go like this.
I kind of did. So we have the graphic. So Anomalisa wins. Can I make my confession? I have not seen Kubo. I have not seen Princess Monarch. I've not seen Prince of Egypt. I've not seen Japanese film 1. I've not seen Japanese film 2. I've not seen How to Train Your Dragon, and I've definitely not seen Anomalisa. So
Wow.
I am taking
well
I'm
done,
giving
sir.
myself my own victory for getting to the final, having basically watched nothing. But very well fought, Chris. But I was trying not to say anything. I didn't want to tell anyone I hadn't watched any of them, so that when I was saying things, it actually came from something I'd actually like seen. When it really was like the only criticism of Anomalisa Online is it's just depressing.
It's a phenomenal film that I'm gonna go ahead and say everyone should go and watch like right now after like watching this bracket. Chris, the dark horse won.
Yeah, you predicted it, Tate. You said all along from the beginning. I was like, "There's no chance against Toy Story." I haven't got.
I'm going out against Toy Story, to be honest. Like, I'd never heard of it before this, and I like animated films, so like.
Yeah, because immediately, like when you saw the graphic, you were like, "What's that one at the bottom right? Is this that one right at the bottom?"
Who is that grey-haired man? I don't recognize him.
Yeah, well, this is. I'd say this is probably the most shocking bracket we've done, right? Probably alongside.
No, definitely not.
Al Pacino.
That was up there, but I mean, in terms of we've had such strong
Best
films.
Disney song was quite a shocking bracket. Like,
I don't know.
I think in terms of the overall arguments and the passion behind a lot of these was what made it a really, really strong episode for everybody. I thought it was so well argued. George, I can't believe you haven't seen as many films as you argued against, which is bizarre. It didn't come out at any point, which it should have. Should have picked up on that. But no, I thought it was just there was so much passion behind people's arguments. I absolutely loved being just a part of this. It was awesome.
No, thanks for being on, Matt. And yeah, animation. I don't know why we haven't jumped on this one sooner. It seems like such a. Well, yeah, of course, animation. There's so many films. We could easily probably do a second bracket.
We could very easily do a second bracket. I've got a list here. I started with 16. I've still got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I've got 9 still left on my list.
And the entire last half of Harry's list. Yeah.
I had 4 out of 5. I had 7 on my list, so I'm just happy that I got most of them.
Mm.
But no, I really enjoyed it. I think that was one of the best ones I've done.
Yeah.
I know we can't like.
I know this is tooting our own horn here, but we are getting better at them every single time. And you should comment below with your favorite animated film. Were you shocked by the win of the bracket? Like, do you think that it should have won? That's another question as well. Have you seen Anomalisa? We should probably link the review to Anomalisa after this, or maybe give it a bit of time before spoilers have passed and everything like that. But I'm definitely going to revisit it after doing this because it fully deserves to be watched. I also want to watch Into the Spider-Verse again now. Every single time the argument came up, it was just like, oh yeah, I need to watch it again. But yeah,
South Park for me. That's the one that I want to go back and rewatch after this whole thing. And to Harry's picks as well, like, I definitely do need. I say this all the time, and
I think your name is on Netflix at the moment.
Oh, okay.
Netflix and Prime, I believe, so you should be able to watch it.
There you
So
go.
I definitely do need to
Also,
sort of
Silent
more.
Voice, which I didn't get enough time to talk about, it was my number one pick. It's amazing. Watch it. Trust me, it's fantastic. It's also on Netflix. It's really good.
Absolutely. We've got to do our homework then. We've got plenty of
Yeah.
films to watch.
Okay, I'm going to throw up the socials now. So if you enjoyed the bracket, go and find us on Facebook. Of course, go to there. We announce all the videos that are coming up and everything like that. It's usually where you find out when the next bracket is happening and what the next bracket is on the quickest. Same with Twitter as well. That's at cinema_savvy. If you also want to go onto TeePublic, the link is in the description to go and pick up a t-shirt from us. We would very much appreciate that. And finally, of course, please like the video, comment as much as you want on this bracket, share the video as well, get the video out there, and subscribe. We are trying to get to 2K as quickly as possible, hopefully by the end of the new year. So yeah, please go and do that. Awesome.
I want to say thank you to George as well for being diligent in getting all the graphics done for these things. They're looking sharp now, and I know how much effort he puts into getting them all done. So thanks for that, George. And thank you to both Harry and Dave for jumping on once again. It's always a blast to have you on. I think this is sort of like the dream team now on Battle of the Brackets. I think we've got it down. And it'd be great to have you both back on at any point when we do a future one too. Before we sign off, Dave, do you want to plug your channels and everything where people can find you on YouTube?
Yeah, if you do want to find me, you can go to The Life of Brien. Brian's spelled Brien, as in my surname. And I stole that name from nowhere. So yes, if you want to come over, I am a model builder on YouTube of partwork models and do them pretty badly most of the time, but they look amazing when we finish. So yeah, if you want to come over, Life of Brien, I'm getting close to like my monetization goals. So yeah, come on over, give it a watch. That'd be lovely. Please.
Awesome. And thank you to everyone who joined us in the comments tonight. Carl and SeaWorld Man tuned in for a while. It's always great to see you guys in the comments section. That'll do it from us, and we'll see you in the next video. Take care, everyone.